Welcome back for our discussion of Lab 4. So let's move down to exercise 1. In this lab we're talking about functions for all subtasks. So we'll be looking at functions calling other functions, and honing in on passing variables between functions. So we want to get comfortable separating programs into functions. So exercise 1. Cut and paste the program above and then run it. Which value I or j got updated upon return from the function process? Well, let's just look at this code before we dive into Visual Studio. We have two functions being declared here. We have get input with I and j as call by reference. So both values will be updated when you make changes within the function. And then we have this void process. So the void types meaning there's no return quantity, but process takes two arguments as well. I is called by reference, j is not. So within the main we create I and j, we get input I and j. Remember, these are set up to be called by reference. We have a cout saying I'm about to call process function, which only I is called by reference, j is not. And then we see out I just came back from process. What are the new values of I and j? And then just return 0. And here we have the definition of those functions. So get input just asks the user for two values, uses cin to get both of those, and then returns nothing. But these were called by reference, so that means the values stored do show up when we return back to our main. Remember that when we call a function, we jump from the main down to the function, run that code, and then at the return we resume back up at the point where we were and continue downward towards the end of the main. So the get input will get the two values, and void process will add 10 to I and 20 to j. It will announce those values while it's inside the process and show you those results. And then in the main we also announce the results outside after it comes back from process. So all I've done so far is copy and pasted that over, added, adjusted my header so everything works properly, but this is just the code directly copied over from the PDF. We'll start by just running it to see what it does. So please enter two values for I and j. Let's just say 1 and 2. So I'm about to call function process I equals 1, j equals 2. And, sorry, I closed my window there. One more time. Alright, 1, 2. So I'm about to call function process 1, 2. Inside the function, I plus 10 and j plus 20. And so I is 11 and j is 22 inside the function. Then we have returned to our main. I just came back from function process. That's a cout in our main after the process function is complete. I is equal to 11 and j is equal to 2. So the question here is, which one of the values got updated upon return? Well, I, as we saw at the end, had its value reflected once it was returned from the process. So coming back from the process, I remained updated. J was back to its initial state of 2. So to answer that first question, only I got updated. And the follow-up to that is why? Because I is set up for call by reference. So we actually send the memory location, meaning changes that we make in the function are reflected back in the main. Whereas j is not call by reference. So we just pass in the value of j, but then once that function ends, it's lost completely. And so finally the PDF says, what update can we make so that both values are returned correctly? And test that change. Well, we already kind of discussed, it's this call by reference ability. So I'm just going to add the ampersand to J on process. We also have to add that to the declaration. Now the function process knows that J is also a call by reference value. So let's run that and see what the difference is. So let's say 1 and 2. So call the process with I of 1 and J of 2. Add 10 and add 20. So I is equal to 11, J is equal to 22. And then I just came back from function process. I is 11 and J is 22. Both updated correctly because we used call by reference for both values. So we're not using return to return a value into the point where we called that function. We're using call by reference to update those values. So that's what we wanted to see in exercise 1, was the usage of call by reference.